Hi there, I'm Matthew Lester from the RhodesBusiness School. This little video is about the lead up to the medium-term budget framework speech, which will be happening in Parliament on the 25th of October 2012. What is the Minister of Finance up against?
Some say that all budget speeches are a complete yawn. But perhaps this year it's time to wake up. There are some serious financial indicators that are going against South Africa. If one goes back on the story of the global credit crunch, it only lasted for 9 months in South Africa. Then we came flying back, but it didn't last, and very shortly growth rates started to fall. This led to an adjustment of expected growth rates to below 3%. When one came to budget 2012, the expectation for growth rates was set as follows. GILL Marcus of the Reserve Bank said 2.8%. The IMF forecast 2.5% for South Africa, and Prof Matthew said, who's to fight with the ladies, let's make it 2.7%, with the expectation that real growth rates of above 4% would return by 2014. So, what we get is a position that South Africa is continuing to grow at between 2 and 3%. There is no expectation at this stage of a recession. In fact, this has been proved. One has found that South Africa only goes into recession when the Sharks win a trophy. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened recently. But when one looks forward, the growth rate of 3% or so is not enough to drive tax collections. Prior to the global credit crunch, tax collections were increasing by approximately 12% per annum. So there was a little bit extra in the pot to accelerate delivery. Post the global credit crunch, tax collections are now increasing by about 8% per annum, and that's not enough to drive the bus. When one comes to the detail in the Prof Matthew budgets, one finds that he is desperately trying to contain the national deficit. So what we see is a massive hole in 2011 of 183 billion rand. And that has been carefully engineered downwards, with the expectation that by 2015 the national budget deficit will be down to 120 billion, or 3.1% of GDP. Why are growth rates and deficits so important? Well, it's a simple formula. When growth rates fall, tax collections fall. When tax collections fall, deficits go up, and when deficits go up, Europe will tell you that you get an economic downgrade from the international commentators. That results in an interest rate increase. And we know that that leads to economic devastation. Meanwhile, another difficulty has emerged. GILL Marcus is not having it too easy in her position as Governor of the Reserve Bank. This is what she had to say recently at a presentation to the RhodesBusiness School.
The Eurozone contracted by 0.7% in the second quarter of 2012, and 12 out of the 17 members experienced negative growth. The US economic growth is below potential, and the prospect of a significant fiscal contraction next year, the so-called fiscal cliff, looms large. Unemployment in the advanced economies has on average more or less doubled, with both Spain and Greece reporting levels of just over 25% across the board and over 50% among youth unemployment. The sovereign debt crisis in Europe remains unresolved, and ongoing fiscal austerity continues to retard growth prospects. Compounding this bleak outlook in the advanced economies, and in the Eurozone in particular, is a banking sector under stress, characterized by shrinking lending or deleveraging as they adjust to new regulatory requirements amid increasing reluctance to lend outside their own countries. The IMF's Global Financial Stability Report, which was released yesterday, estimates that the euro area banks will need to deleverage by an estimated $4.5 trillion in the next year. That is unbelievably huge. And of this, which is 20% higher than their estimate in April this year. The travails of the Eurozone are likely to last for some time, and it's ordinary people around the world who are suffering, who have lost their jobs and their future dreams, and are losing confidence and trust in economic and political institutions.
GILL Marcus's job is to manage the balance of payments current account. So put up a set of scales, and we are saying on the good side, we have got exports and inward investment, bringing money into South Africa. On the bad side, we have got imports and outward investment, taking money out of the country. In the last year, things have got difficult. Oil prices have increased, international investment has deleveraged, and there are post-Marikani jitters. This has all taken a massive amount of money out of the country. Meanwhile, on the other side of the equation, there has not been much improvement. So what do we see? When we look at it all in the balance of payments current account, we see in the early years of GILL Marcus a massive improvement in the balance of payments current account as we came back from the global credit crunch. But this disturbing crisis that we are seeing at the moment is another hole emerging in the balance of payments current account. So we are out of balance. What does this mean? Interest rates increased during the closing years of the Tito Mboweni era as Governor of the Reserve Bank. Interest rates have decreased in the Marcus era as the balance of payments current account has improved. What is the effect of this? Well, over the last 24 months we have seen a gradual decline in exchange rates. In the meantime, oil prices fluctuate wildly. Earlier this year we thought things were okay when the oil prices dipped below $100 a barrel, but now they're stubbornly above the $110 a barrel mark, and if this is coupled with the weakening in exchange rates, then we see that the oil price per barrel is now at a record high of around 1,000 rands a barrel. The Eskom debacle continues, with the price of a kVH going from 15 to 60 over a period of 10 years. Put it all together, and we land up in a little bit of an energy crisis. In the red line, we have the consumer price index. Then in purple, we see that petrol has increased majorly over 3 years above the consumer price index, and of course electricity way above the consumer price index. This is a major threat to both the consumer and all businesses in South Africa. The result is that consumer confidence is shattered. It fell off a precipice during the global credit crunch in 2008. Everybody dusted themselves off and got back into the shops. But what we see this year is a gradual decline in consumer confidence levels to nearly as low as they were in 2008. And that's not good for VAT collections. In the 2012 budget speech presented back in February, Prof Matthew identified that VAT collections were below budget. This was caused by the drop in consumer sentiment. Also, personal tax collections, for the first time in many years, were below budget, and transfer duty had all but evaporated due to the crisis in the residential property market. But they managed to compensate that by bringing in corporate tax collections slightly over budget, and the smaller taxes also compensating, to bring SARS on 1 April 2012 to be dead on target for 2012 tax collections at 742 billion rand, right on target. But that was last year. What happens in the year to come? The national budget established back in February shows a disturbing trend. Increased pressure on personal tax, now 34% of total taxes, while corporate taxes have declined and VAT is under pressure. Put it all together in a graph provided by SARS, they show personal tax collections, which were steadily increasing, leveling off, VAT in a recovery phase from the global credit crunch, and a dwindling corporate tax collection. There is little that personal tax collections can do to steady the ship. So, putting together a budget for 2013, they say, right, we need about an extra 100 billion rand. We will get 17 or so from company tax and the new dividend tax. Then we will go to the consumer and get a lot extra. We will take it in the form of fuel taxes, import duties and sin tax, increase in electricity levies, and increased VAT collections. Then we will visit the consumer again on their personal tax and claim an extra 33 billion rand. The big question to be put out in the medium-term budget framework speech is, can they sustain this? Will they get the extra 100 billion rand that is required for 2013? And will they provide any indication of where extra taxes might come in the 2014 fiscal year? Here are some reasons I am glad I am not Prof presenting the medium-term budget framework speech. It was easy in the days of Trevor Manuel, but all the trends have turned against Prof South Africa can't borrow by more than 4% of GDP, or there will be an economic downgrade. Growth rates have slowed to around 3%. That's simply not enough. Corporate tax collections have dropped due to lower growth rates and assessed losses carried forward from 2008 and 2009. Wage increases have also slowed, so employees' tax collections have slowed as well. There are no more fringe benefits left to tax. Consumer confidence has dropped, so VAT collections have slowed. The Gauteng fuel debacle is not yet resolved. Where is that extra 5 or so billion rand a year going to come from? The National Credit Act means that consumers cannot borrow and spend. This again is keeping consumers at home in bring and buy mode. The carbon emission taxes that were seen as being possibly a saviour for South Africa will be inflationary for all and must be very carefully considered before they can be implemented. Anyway, implementation is a long way off. And finally, the property market is as dead as a dodo, and the extra bit that they were getting from transfer duties is simply not happening.
So there you have it. It's a tough time, and we've got to see what can Prof do about it, or have we got to sit back and wait what happens on the international front. Join me at 2 p.m. on 25 October 2012 to find out what happens. I'm Matthew Lester from the Rhodes Business School.